Hi, I'm Matt Mahler with MovieWeb. It's a real honor to speak with you today. Thank you for taking
Well,
the time.
well, thank you for doing the interview.
Yeah, absolutely. It's such a cool thing to see. I mean, I know this sort of retrospective was at the Siskel Center and the American Cinematheque is doing it, and then Film at Lincoln Center. It's you have this, you spent, I guess, roughly 5 years reviewing and going over this massive, great body of work. You and a lot of great people. I'm curious in that process with that retrospective perspective, did you notice anything for the first time about yourself or your work, or notice any changes throughout the decades?
Well, I saw things that I might have done differently now, but I didn't change anything.
Right,
You
right.
know, because I mean, you, the more you work, the more experience you get, and the approach gets. I've learned most about how to make a film from editing, and so I when I saw some of the early films, I probably wouldn't have edited. Now I wouldn't have edited them quite. I would have edited some parts of them differently. But I mean, I didn't change anything. I
Yeah,
mean, 'cause that's
absolutely.
that's that's the way it was at the time.
Yeah. I'm curious, I mean, you film quite a bit. Uh, do you ever go back and film more once you start editing, or do you consider it done and you're working with what you have?
Most often, I consider it done and working what I had. There are a couple of times when I went back. For Law and Order, I went back for about 10 days after about 3 or 4 months of editing because I felt I didn't have enough in the station house. On the first round, I was in the cars all the time. And For the Deaf and Blind series, my original intention was to make one film. But when I started editing, I realized that, I mean, even when during the original shooting, but I, I realized I had to go back and make separate films because it was too complicated to combine the problems of the deaf are different than the problems of the blind, are different than the problems of adults. So I went back and for a couple more weeks and shot the material that I didn't have to make four separate films.
It's interesting, that looking back, you yourself today might have edited things differently. What happens with all this unused footage? I know you sometimes have hundreds of hours. Is that stored in any way? And have you ever considered going back and recreating something new from something you filmed this footage decades ago?
No, no, it's all at the Library of Congress. But I've never thought about going back and you know, I mean, it's preserved there, and that's fine.
Is that because it's probably, well, I don't want to assume, but why is that? Are you so in the moment with each film that you're never sort of looking back? I imagine each one is a document of how you're feeling while you're making it.
Yeah, well, you know, I feel that I've done the best job I can with the material at the time that I made the film, and that's it. And onward and upward with new projects.
Yeah, and it's incredible how prolific you are. Um, I am curious. I spoke with Ken Loach when they did a retrospective of his work, and looking back through all that, uh, he's I think younger than you, but he was saying he wasn't sure if he would do another full feature film. Um, do you have anything in the works now, or what is
No,
your?
actually, well, I'm 95, so my energy level is not quite the same, and I've been sick. So
Sorry.
unless I get my energy back, I'm not sure I'll do another film.
I am sorry to hear that. I hope you feel better. Also, I mean, your 2023 film, like Menu Foie Gras, excuse me if I'm not pronouncing that right. It's such a masterpiece. I
Which
mean,
I didn't catch which film.
the about the French restaurant, Les
Oh,
Menus Foie Gras.
menu plays there. Menu plays there.
Plaisir, yeah,
Right,
the
right.
Foie Gras family,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's like right.
Such a masterpiece. I mean, if that's your swan song, that's I can't think of a better one. Do you see yourself in that film in any way? Does it seem fitting for that to be sort of the cap of this incredible body of work?
Well, when I was making it, I didn't think it might be the last one, but I'm pleased with the way it came out. So if it turns out as is likely to be the last one, so be it.
It is such a it put me in such a zone, this place that only you can create, I feel. Um, it's such a beautiful film, and your films have sort of gotten longer and more magisterial, I think, in many ways, bigger, um, but also retaining, the core of your style. Are you worried at all about the future of film with attention spans, decreasing attention spans, or do you disagree that that's the case?
Well, I don't think about it. Uh, it's not my, you know, I like to make movies. I get a chance to make them. I make them at whatever length I think is appropriate, and so be it. Uh, you know, I I can't. I it's not just that I can't. I don't know how to take into account an audience.
And it's better for it, I imagine. Um, I'm curious. The critic Richard Brody wrote that your overarching subject is power. I know you probably don't want to analyze your own films in that way, but do you think that's right in your mind?
Well, I mean, it's one of the themes of the films. Uh, but whether it's the overarching theme, I mean, I don't think there has to be one overarching theme.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just this retrospective, it's not just a body of great films, but it feels like a seminal American history. It's this important look at systems, structures, agencies, institutions, people. Um, and I feel like America, you started making films outside of America with the National Gallery, is that right? The London film?
No, the maybe I've forgotten what the first one was. Maybe National Gallery.
Okay. Is there a reason that you
Well,
decided to start?
no, I'm not sure. No, it was probably Crazy Horse. It was La Danse, actually. La Danse was the first. No, the Comedy Française was the first one.
My apologies. You've made so many so many films. It's incredible. Was there any reason that you decided to start exploring things, overseas?
Well, I mean, the films I made in France, the subjects are primarily subjects that exist in very different forms in America. So, I mean, there's no American theater repertory company. The equivalent of the Comédie Française existed for more than 300 years. Equally true of the ballet company, existed for 300 years. Uh, there are restaurants like Trois Gros, or nightclubs like Crazy Horse. And those are the documentaries I made in France. And the fiction film I made in France, I made it in France because I had a great actress who wanted to play the role, the principal, the only role. Um, so that the films I made in France are films that I couldn't make in America. And I've never had an interest in duplicating or repeating in France the subject matter that I did in America.
I'm curious. I don't know. On that note, you've studied and explored. I mean, like I said, you've defined a sort of history of America, but we're at an odd time where a lot of these systems and programs are being shut down. The current administration seems hell bent on eliminating a lot of the things you've filmed or privatizing them. Do you? Does that worry you at all, or
Well, of course, well,
no?
it doesn't worry me. It worries me as a citizen. Because I think what's going on is idiocy and craziness, and we have a psychopath as president.
Yeah, absolutely, and a developing oligarchy, really. Um, I don't know. Are you because you've documented so much of America, you've seen so much of it. Does it feel like it'll? Does this just feel like another blip, or does this feel different to you?
Oh, that it's hard to make a generalization like
Mm.
that. I'm not Nostradamus. I resist predicting what's going to happen.
Sure, sure. Um, I'm. How do you know when to stop filming? I imagine it's different with each film and context, but when do you
Well,
get that sense?
it's completely subjective. You know, if I figure if I have 150 hours of material, I can probably cut at least a 15-minute film, and or I may just be tired, or I may go home to my own bed. But it's the synthesis of a series of impressions, and I just have a feeling I've got enough material, or things start to feel repetitive.
You feel like a lot of that is based on the trust you have about your editing, the confidence you have about editing.
Well, no, I don't think in those terms. I just think I remember, I pretty much remember what's been shot, and I think out of that I should be able to cut a film.
Yeah.
Uh,
I I'm curious. I mean, the audience is a second thought for you, but sort of with this retrospective, is there anything you hope people take away, or in the future with your body of work? Is there anything you want to last specifically?
well, I hope they think about the themes. I hope they think about the ideas I'm trying to deal with in the films and the relationship of the films to each other.
Each one of them, I imagine, I mean, each one of them is special in their own way, but when you were sort of going through the digitizing process and reviewing them, did did any one film stand out for any certain reason, or one series, one period of films?
No, I mean, I mean, strange enough, I tend to like them all. Uh, uh,
Not
and
strange at all.
uh, uh, and uh, I guess at different times in my life, I've had different favorites, but their favorites have less to do with what the film is like than what the experience of making the film was like. Uh, uh, like the experience of making a film in the monastery was really great. It was very strange, but it was really great. Or the experience of spending time in a welfare center. I mean, I learned, putting aside whatever may be in the film, I learned an enormous amount about the lives of other people that I didn't know before. And that's often the case.
Yeah.
Uh, because I middle class boy, I had never spent that much time with people who were struggling to survive on a daily basis. Many of whom were struggling to survive on a daily basis, and so I learned something about their lives, and I, it added to my understanding. At least I hope it added to my understanding of human nature and contemporary politics.
After chronicling so much, do you, I mean, building off that, do you feel like uh, you have better understanding of the world or human nature or politics at all? Do you feel satisfied with what you've learned?
No, I don't feel satisfied with what I learned at all, but I feel I'm, you know, each movie is a different experience with different people in situations that I have never experienced before. So I hope that, I hope in each case I've learned something, which in turn has affected my behavior and my judgment about what's going on.
The the company is named after your wife, correct? Is
Right, right, right.
um was she I did she have any favorite experiences of filming or any specific favorite films of yours? Anything you could share?
No, she was very supportive of my work. She was a law professor and had her own career. Uh, and but she liked the films and always supported me in my desire to do them.
Do you think there's anyone sort of carrying the mantle of documentary cinema right now, either in the way you approach it or the way you like to see it?
Well, you know, I I don't see many movies at all, so it's hard for me to answer that question. Uh, I'm a big fan of Errol Morris's movies,
Hmm.
but works in a style completely different than mine. But he makes very good movies.
That's so interesting, yeah, because tonal opposites. Um, you were never tempted to sort of stylize like Morris. That temptation never came across to you.
Well, I was never tempted to stylize like him. I think my movies are stylized in the form that I chose to make them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah. All right. Well, do you have any sort of uh introduction to people who may not have seen a film of yours, where they should start or what you would tell them as preparation, maybe?
I hope they see the films and with with a relaxed attitude, and I hope they enjoy them. I mean, I have no. I think each film speaks for itself, and I think they may find that they're related,
Yeah.
and I like it when people think about the ideas in the film because I mean, in each film there's both a literal aspect and an abstract aspect, uh, and I like it when people respond to the film at both those levels.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the amount of text and subtext involved in this body of work is incredible. Thank you for discussing it. Um, and thank you for your work digitizing it with your team. It's, so important to cinema and culture. So,
Uh, Thank you for doing the interview. I
I
appreciate it.
thank you so much. Have a
Uh,
great rest of your week. Thank you, sir.
you too. Bye bye.